Mac Miller is a renowned artist who rose to fame in 2009 and in his time cultivated a massive fan base that not only admired his music but has grown with his music. The other day I was talking to some of the homies about Mac Miller's discography and what exactly his best project is, and I wanted to make a video and talk about it. In this video, we'll be going through every Mac Miller album and most of his mixtape with the exception of two, that when it was released and my general thoughts on each project. As a longtime Mac Miller fan, I found that I've listened to just about every project numerous times, and especially recently since I do a lot of driving throughout the day, I sometimes just throw on an album and listen to it front to pass the time. And I've definitely been bumping a lot of Mac Miller these past few weeks. So if you're new here, my name's Ron. I upload 3 to 4 videos on hip hop every week. So if you don't want to miss out on a single upload, be sure to subscribe, like the video. It helps me out a ton. And I'm currently on the grind to 10,000 subscribers. So if you want to help me out on that journey, I'd really appreciate it, and it'll help me keep improving my content in the future. And with that being said, let's dive right into the discography of Mac Miller. So we're going to go through the mixtapes first. We're going to skip over But My Mackin' Ain't Easy that came out in 2007 and The Jukebox that came out in 2009, just because it's been a while since I've listened to those projects, and honestly, they're so early on in his career that they almost don't really reflect from when I started listening to Mac's music. I started listening around The High Life, which is the first project we'll get into, and I went back to those, but I feel like I didn't go back to those till about 2013, 2014, and they're just such early work that obviously it's not going to be the best work, considering any artist when they start out, they're not going to make their top quality music. But going into The High Life, came out in 2009. It was really a laid-back project. Mac Miller was really young at this point and had a really optimistic outlook on life. I feel like this project really helped Mac break out of Pittsburgh, and it was the first project I ever listened to by Mac Miller. It was my introduction to his music, and honestly, instantly I was hooked. So I would definitely consider this one of his better mixtapes, just because I have that personal attachment to it, that it was the first project that really made me a fan. And as for a couple favorite songs on this project, Live Free is definitely one that I still listen to this day. Same thing with Another Night. Those are both just amazing songs that I'll throw on every now and then in the car while I'm driving. And then I also really enjoy Cruise Control with Wiz. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I went back to it, and it was definitely a solid song that I still enjoy to this day. Going into Kids, or Kickin' Incredibly Dope Shit, came out in 2010. This was Mac Miller's breakout mixtape. This is what broke him into the music industry and really put him on the map. And this is a mixtape that was inspired by the movie Kids. And this is when we can first see Mac entering his more stoner rap, and he's rapping about smoking a lot more and just really diving into that side of his youth. This is a personal favorite of mine because I still listen to it front to back a lot. I'm not going to lie. I've actually just listened to it a couple days ago. I would literally just sit and put it through all the way front to back. This is timeless music. This is not as good as it gets, but this is definitely up there, and it might just be a nostalgia thing. Some of my favorite songs include The Introduction, Outside, Senior Skip Day, and Good Evening is one of those songs. I threw it on right before I made this video, and it's just actually one of the... And it really solidified Mac as a new coming rapper in the game. And this project is probably the first introduction to a lot of people to Mac Miller, and really created a lot of first-time fans for Mac. Some of my favorite projects on this song include I'll Be There, All Around the World, Wake Up, and Keep Floating. This is definitely one of Mac's better mixtape, and you can tell that he was really polishing his sound, and not really just his sound, but more of him rapping in general. You can tell he was a lot more comfortable rapping on this project. And then he followed it up with his next project, I Love Life, Thank You, that was just released on streaming services this year. But this is more optimistic mixtape. It had more of a reflective and mature tone, so you can tell he was starting to get away from that college frat rap and that just young upbeat rap that he was doing. He was being a little more vulnerable at points, and this was definitely a solid mixtape. I went back and listened to it a couple times this year, and it brought me back definitely to 2011, and I really enjoyed this mixtape as a whole. My favorite songs would definitely have to be The Scoop on Heaven, Willie Dynamite, and Pranks for Players. In 2012, Mac dropped Macadelic, which is a little bit more darker, introspective music, exploring love, fame, and personal struggles. It's considered a transitional project in his artistic evolution, as this is definitely when he started showing a lot of vulnerability in his music and being a lot more comfortable expressing personal struggle through his music. Some of my favorite songs on this mixtape were Loud, Thoughts from a Balcony, Fight the Feeling, and The Question. Next, in 2014, Mac dropped Faces, and this is more of a deep, self-reflective mixtape that tackles themes of addiction, depression, and existentialism. This is widely regarded as one of his best works, and honestly, this is definitely my top. This is my favorite Mac Miller project of them all, honestly. This is S tier up there for me. I can listen to this at any point, and top to bottom, I just love every song on this project. I think this is a perfectly constructed mixtape, and I would argue to say that this is one of the best mixtapes of all time in terms of just everything. Y'all can call me a glazer, whatever. This is my favorite mixtape of all time for sure. And the fact that it was finally released on streaming services, I was so hyped, bro. I listened to this so much. I was listening to it today. But now that we got mixtapes out the way, we're going to dive into his albums. So in 2011, Mac Miller dropped Blue Slide Park, which was his first studio album. And this is definitely a fun, upbeat album that Mac was definitely shouting out Pittsburgh a lot and really excited that he put his city on the map and that he's really got out into the mainstream. So this is definitely a very upbeat project that had a lot of optimism in it, and you can just hear that he had fun making this whole project. Some of my favorite songs on this are Party on Fifth Ave, Pennsylvania Nights, Of the Soul, and Missed Call. And after Mac dropped Blue Slide Park, he took 2 years to make his next album, Watching Movies with the Sound Off, which marked a departure from his earlier sound with the more experimental production and introspective lyrics that included themes of spirituality and fame. This was made around the time that he made Faces, and he also made another project, Delusional Thomas, that I didn't go into. That was a mixtape that Mac Miller's alter ego, so I didn't dive into it just for that reason. And I feel like if you're not really... A lot of fans probably haven't dove into that side of Mac's music, but if you have, great project for sure. But back to Watching Movies with the Sound Off, this was definitely one of my favorite Mac Miller albums. This is one that, top to bottom, again, I really enjoy. I wouldn't put it in S tier. I'd probably put it in A tier. I think it has no skips on it, and it's definitely one of his better projects. And at the time, honestly, when it came out in 2013, I wasn't really liking it at the time. I was not fucking with it at the time. But about 2015 came, I got a little older. I was 17 at that point. I did start to enjoy it more, and it's grown to be one of my favorite Mac Miller projects. And then in 2015, Mac Miller dropped Good AM, or some people refer to it as Good Morning. And this is more of a good balance, and this is definitely his most mainstream appeal album. This is one that I definitely have a bias towards. It's one of my favorite projects because this is the first and only time I got to go to a Mac Miller concert. And I just genuinely enjoyed this project. I was 15 when this project came out. I went to a Mac Miller concert on Long Island. I'll throw up a picture on screen if you want to see 15-year-old me at a Mac concert. But this is definitely one of my favorite projects just because, I got that live experience of listening to all the songs. And honestly, it was just a great project overall. I couldn't even pick a couple favorites if I wanted to, I just really enjoy this project overall. And then going into his next project in 2016, The Divine Feminine. This is a jazz-inspired album that celebrates love and relationships and has a lot of more soulful vibes in the production. This was a project that dropped when I was a freshman in college. And yeah, I listened to this album a lot since then. I've come back to this album. I come back to this album probably weekly. Not necessarily the album. If not, at least one of the songs will come up on my playlist or having my likes on Spotify that I just go back to. But this is definitely a great album. If I had to pick a couple favorite songs from that album, it would probably be Stay, my favorite part, and God is Fair, Sexy, Nasty. And just again, this was a great project overall, top to bottom. I really enjoyed this album, and it's one that has a lot of repeat value for me. And Mac started to sing a little more, and he started to be a little more comfortable diving into that more soulful production. And just, I feel like this is the start that led into his next album, Swimming, in 2018, which was a more deep personal album that reflected on self-growth, resilience, and finding peace amid turmoil. Also, this was Mac's Grammy-nominated album, that more like jazz-inspired rap and a little bit more singing and vulnerability in his music. I think definitely would have been the direction that Mac Miller was taking today if he were still with us. So I honestly consider this album just a masterpiece top to bottom. I couldn't even pick some favorite songs off this album. This is just, you can turn on at any point, and for the most part, people are going to enjoy it. This is, great music top to bottom. And then going into Circles, which dropped in 2020, this is Mac's first posthumous album, and this is a companion album to Swimming. Swimming and Circles were supposed to be Swimming was supposed to be a double album with Circles. It was supposed to be Swimming and Circles was the concept for both albums. And this was a more softer, stripped back sound, and it reflects on themes of closure and acceptance. So this album definitely hits home for a lot of fans. It's definitely a lot of fans' favorite album from what I saw online, and Mac was really a lot more vulnerable and just sung a lot throughout the album. This is definitely not just this is definitely a more peaceful album for Mac, and I feel like this was a good direction for Mac Miller to go in. I feel like at this point he finally found best sound for him, and I feel like this was his making the best music of his career. And I think same with swimming, he would have leaned more into this direction, and we would have gotten a lot more music like this from him. So this album definitely one of my favorites, and some of my favorite tracks would be Right, the bonus track from the deluxe, Woods, Surf, Right from the deluxe, the little bonus track, Woods, Surf, and Blue World. And like I said, this is just top to bottom a great album. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your favorite Mac Miller projects? If you had to your favorite Mac Miller songs, like top 5, what would you say your favorite songs by him are? If you stuck around and this deep listening, I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to me yap about their projects for 20 minutes, for 15 minutes or whatever. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Thank you so much for watching the videos. Remember to like the video and subscribe. It really helps me out a ton. And yeah, follow your dreams. Do what you got to do. Chase whatever goals you're chasing. And yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace.